Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Here we are looking at the latest lineup and injury news from the press conferences ahead of Gameweek 3. This is in two parts. Yesterday in part 1 we looked at teams including Leicester and Everton. In this second part, looking at today's press conferences, we focus on teams including Liverpool and Manchester United. For these team news episodes, I'm joined by Neale. Neale, welcome. How are you?
Very good, yeah. Last minute panic to get everything sorted before the deadline tonight, but I think I've heard all 20 press conferences now, so let's go.
Right, yeah, okay. Well, let's start with a bit of leftover from yesterday. We covered all of yesterday's press conferences. Please look at part 1 and the likes of Everton and Leicester, as I mentioned. But Watford were very late in the day in releasing their press conference news. So, yeah, what news from Watford? I understand potential changes up front. One of their strikers is out.
Yeah, a bit of a bombshell. This just came out of nowhere. Troy Deeney, who is one of their first choice centre forwards, along with De La Feo, he's going to be out for 2 months now with a knee problem. He had surgery on it yesterday, I think. So he'll be out till back end of October at least. On top of that, they've got doubts over Pereira and Doucouré, who haven't trained at all this week. At least that was the case as of yesterday. So yeah, a real selection dilemma for Gracia, because he was saying that Ismaila Sarr and Danny Welbeck, who are two of their summer signings, are perhaps not in peak condition as you would expect. Welbeck's probably ahead of Sarr in terms of match readiness, but he was intimating that even despite the injuries that he's got, he wouldn't be forcing Welbeck and Sarr to start. So could be a real patched up lineup tomorrow, I think, against West Ham.
Okay, well, let's move on to today's press conferences. Lots of big guns, lots of top 6 or supposed top 6 sides. Manchester United, they take on Palace. Solskjaer's been talking about their penalty takers, which of course Pogba missed the last one during the week. So yeah, what's Solskjaer been saying?
Yeah, it's the shootout tomorrow, because I think these are the two teams who've scored the most penalties over the last couple of seasons. So nothing in the way of injury news. Alexis Sanchez is probably on his way out anyway, so his return to fitness isn't really going to be important. But yeah, the quotes about the penalty taking hierarchy at United. So we saw Pogba miss on Monday. Rashford had scored previously this season and said that there wasn't one designated penalty taker. This has been the case for a while, I think. Even though Pogba took the bulk of them last season, there was other people chipping in. So yes, Solskjaer isn't going to strip Pogba of his penalty taking responsibilities. He said that they've nominated 2 takers, Pogba and Rashford. They're still practicing them. I'm sure you'll see Pogba score one again. So it doesn't sound like Rashford's got the monopoly at penalty taking situations. And I think Solskjaer even name checked the likes of Lingard later on as well. Martial took one last season, so it didn't matter. So I think it's going to be much as it was before, this rotation in terms of spot kicks. It might be a case of whoever wins it gets first dibs, but it doesn't sound like there's been any change, despite the criticism he's faced in terms of nominating the first choice penalty taker.
So good news still if you're getting Rashford in or have Rashford. Good or possibly bad news if you've got Paul Pogba and you're expecting penalties, especially if he takes them, because every time I've owned him he seems to miss them. So that certainly happened with his owners last week. I'm not sure about it. It doesn't sound quite right. Most other teams, they have a designated penalty taker, or they say they have a rule: you win it, you take it, that type of thing. Yeah. Manchester United, it doesn't look pretty at the moment. I remember famously with Swansea, it was practically a bun fight to try and take the penalty one year. It just doesn't look great. I don't think Solskjaer's really shed any more light on that as well, apart from, if you've got a Manchester United attacker, well, chances are they might take a penalty. You never know.
Yeah, free for all.
Yeah, free for all. So let's move on to Spurs. They take on Newcastle at home, so could be ripe for investment. I know some backers there of Harry Kane. What about their team, and particularly their midfield as well?
Yeah, so Ndombele is the latest casualty on the injury list. He's got a minor thigh injury, so it doesn't sound like a long-term thing, but he would play this weekend. Dele Alli is back in training, but Pochettino said this morning that he he'll make a late decision on him. So I would suspect they won't risk a start from him, given that he's been out for several weeks. It's a hamstring problem as well. He had recurring problems with this. He also said Giovanni Lo Celso probably isn't ready for a start either. He's a long way from his perfect condition. So, yeah, at least we've got fewer names to select from in the team news tab, but still selection headaches for Pochettino. Son's back. This is the big one. He's back from suspension. Who the fall guy is for him, I don't know, because even if they switch to a 4-2-3-1, well, they've played a diamond this season. They've played a strange shape against Man City to try and defend against City. But yeah, it could be back to a 4-2-3-1. But again, they've got Lamela and Lucas Moura in decent form. Eriksen is sort of pivotal for as long as he's at the club creatively, especially against a team like Newcastle who's going to defend. So yeah, it's maybe 3 from those 4. Son could possibly come back in on the right. He could play up top alongside Kane, but yeah, very tough to call. I think it might be between Son and Lucas. I think for a start.
Yeah, it does sound like that. On the left. I know this is where a lot of Spurs fans scratching their heads as why Lucas is seen as a super sub and not a super player.
Yeah.
At Spurs, he'd walk into virtually any other side really, but not for Spurs. Same with Son coming back. That is an issue as well, as you said. 4 doesn't go into 3. I think Harry Kane looks safe, but it's going to cost...
easier one. Neale don't start, I think, barring any late setbacks. But he's cost a lot more, but arguably that guarantees you security of start.
You pay for what you get for. You get peace of mind, so you can sit on your deck chair outside with Harry Kane in your side, knowing that he's going to play. The rest of them, who knows? Let's move on to Man City. They travel to Bournemouth. What has Pep had to say ahead of that clash?
Well, he's ruled out John Stones tomorrow, but more pertinently for fantasy managers, I think, is the fact that Zinchenko is fit. According to Guardiola, he says he's trained perfectly this week, and it was merely cramp that forced him. Did he came off? I think he just fell at the ground, didn't he, later on against Spurs?
Makes it sound like he just had enough, just collapsed.
He's I think he's put a lot of minutes in. He's been the first choice left back since the back end of last season. Really, he's been with Mendy out, and obviously Angelino still bedding in. He's got a shirt at the moment. Mendy, by the way, is back in training, but I suspect it'll be a while before we see him. He's got to string together some sessions and then work his way back into the team and prove to Guardiola that he's a reliable pick. Now, there was one other quote which I thought was quite interesting regarding the fullback department. So, Cancelo, Guardiola said before that he can fill in on the left where necessary, but he's mostly a backup for Walker. He kind of reiterated that today, saying that it's mostly to relieve Walker from some minutes because he's played a lot over the last couple of years. He hasn't really had any competition. He made a point that Zinchenko has got Mendy and Angelino on the left. So obviously he does see Cancelo's future predominantly on the right, but he can cover if necessary. And he did say that a hint that he was probably going to be more in line for a start after the international break when the fixtures start piling up, when the Champions League starts, the Carabao Cup starts. He said now 1 game a week that people have time to recover, which might imply that he's going to stick with Zinchenko and Walker for now, but long-term rotation risk.
We've moved from one headache to another. We talked about the Spurs midfield headache, and now we're talking about the Man City fullback headache. I was just talking on Twitter just now with Luke and also Adam Hopcroft. And one thing, Luke obviously from the Scoutcast, regular there, and also Adam is a regular guest as well on the Scoutcast. Both of them singing the praises of Laporte as well. So I agree with them wholeheartedly, and I think Laporte could be the one. I just think he could be the safest one, especially as you tell me that John Stones is out as well. It's just less competition, less headaches. That's what we want as fantasy managers, less headaches.
Exactly. Much like Kane, you get what you pay for, don't you? With Laporte, a bit more expensive, but reliable starter.
He's like a walking aspirin. I like him. Let's rattle through these. Let's move on. Let's look at Klopp and Liverpool. So Liverpool face Arsenal, and what news from Anfield?
Yeah, Kate is still out. That's not going to affect many people's fantasy teams. More pertinent to fantasy managers is the fact that Alisson's obviously still out. We've had two updates there. Really, one's from the goalkeeping coach this morning, who said that he'll probably be out until after the September international break, or he'll be reassessed then anyway. Klopp's had his press conference just about half an hour ago. He says that he's not that close, but he's off crutches now. He's looking good, and that he doesn't have a date really in mind for a return. But the fact that he's doing fitness work and he's off crutches suggests that it isn't anything more than medium term, and I do suspect we'll see him not long after the international break, even though they're a bit cagey on a return date. So Adrian safe for now, but again, long term, as you would expect, he'll make way for Alisson when he's back.
Yeah, looking forward to watching him kick the ball at the opposing striker in order to go past him again, which of course he did with Danny Ings as well. This is against Arsenal. Now, obviously it's Arsenal. Liverpool are high scoring against them, but Arsenal are a supposed bigger side as well, bigger side than some of their other opponents. Do we think this could be a match where perhaps Gomez gets the nod at right back? Is that possible?
That is possible, yeah. I was discussing this in the team news tab this morning. Previously, so Gomez has played at right back against it was Man City in a home game last season. We saw him there in the Super Cup, and there is that nagging doubt about Alexander-Arnold that against the top teams. We saw in Napoli against Napoli in pre-season, he was completely destroyed by Insigne on the left. Now, I would ordinarily lean towards Gomez in that case, but Gomez played against Chelsea at right back, as I say, just over a week ago, and didn't have the best of times there. So I wonder if Alexander-Arnold still got the edge for this game. I do think it is a worry. I'm an owner of Alexander-Arnold, and I am a bit concerned. I am not in the slightest bit confident that he will start, especially if Aubameyang's going to be on the left. There was that game at the Emirates last season when Aubameyang absolutely ripped Alexander-Arnold apart. So I'm concerned. I think Robertson and Van Dijk are your sure starters, but tough to call that one.
I think we should just subtitle this headache. Massive. And again, more headache there. I would say a minor headache compared to the Man City fullback situation, but nevertheless, I wouldn't be overly confident. Perhaps those who've got double Liverpool defence will actually be okay this week, because at least they've got a backup in case Alexander-Arnold doesn't show up, and they have him. Let's move on to Chelsea as well. What news from Lampard? Obviously, potentially more headaches there across the board in the new look Chelsea side. But what news?
So Rudiger's still not fit. He's hopefully going to be back next week. They've got a new injury problem with Kante. He's got an ankle sprain. He wasn't spotted in the open training session on Tuesday. Now, some people are just speculating that it might just be a day of rest because he's come back from this knee problem and put in a lot of work against Liverpool in the Super Cup and then Leicester last weekend. But no, he's actually got a fresh injury. It's an ankle sprain, which I suppose is a good thing because it's not his knee. But he's going to be assessed over the next 24 hours and will obviously be a doubt because Chelsea's in action early on, aren't they, against Norwich. So I'd be prepared for him not to start. But not so good news for Kante. More positive news in terms of Pedro because he was also missing on Tuesday in that training session. But Lampard says he's pretty much fine. He's trained since. He had a couple of aches and it was related to fatigue more than anything else because he played a lot in the first 3 competitive games of the season. So he looks like he's fine. Although, again, Lampard's got a lot of options up front if he does wish to rest him, with Willian back, obviously Barkley on the bench as well. So, a selection headache for Lampard, even with injuries, I think, in midfield.
I mean, there's one of the headaches is, I think it's the pendulum of the midfield battle in Chelsea is slightly swinging towards Mason Mount's favour at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
So those getting him in can feel perhaps more confident than perhaps if they went for Ross Barkley. But I was thinking more at the back as well. Now that's highly likely we're going to look at Zuma and Christensen as their centre backs. Would that be fair?
This weekend, it'll almost certainly be that. I think
so. Possibly without Kante to protect them.
Yeah, good news for a certain Finnish striker.
I was going to say I'm one of the 500,000 or so who've got Pukki in from Norwich. Chelsea play Norwich, of course, and I feel ever so confident now that you've said that. I wasn't feel so confident before, but you're telling me that one of the best defensive midfielders in the world is out, and going to be facing Zuma and Christensen. Well,
Yeah, I should say he's not definitely out. He's
no,
going to be assessed.
could be
Yeah,
out. Yes, could be out.
looking at doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just living in hope. Glass full, half full, or glass half empty. If I was a Chelsea fan. Let's move on to some of the others now. So in particular, we'll move on to some of their opponents. But let's first have a look at Burnley. They take on Wolves as well. So have we any news from either Burnley or Wolves about their lineups this weekend?
Not much so far. Same 3 absentees for Burnley, Defoe, Brady, and who's the other guy? Someone else. Anyway, it's nobody important. It's one of the peripheral squad players. Wolves were in action last night, and they named a pretty strong team with, I think, 4 changes. So the likes of Bennett, Neves, and Johnny will come back in. Now, Doherty wasn't involved. He came off at half-time against Man United with, I think, an illness that was reported in the press anyway. Now, Santo gave a pre-match press conference on Thursday before this Torino game. Said he's okay, he's fine. But he wasn't in the 18-man squad in Turin. So mixed messages, really. And the fact that Adama Traore was substituted after, I think, 64 minutes. Now, he's been playing as the wing-back in Doherty's absence. So was he being preserved for the weekend? I think that's a lot of intrigue there as to what's going to happen. So yeah, that looks to be the only real selection problem, I think, in terms of Wolves are a very predictable side in terms of how they set up 3-5-2. Jimenez and Jota were both substituted in the second half to preserve them for this weekend. Well, that's the one to watch, I think, that right wing-back role, whether it's going to be Doherty back, he hasn't looked great this season, or whether Adama, who's been excellent from an attacking sense,
Yes,
a bit suspect defensively still, but improving all the time. Whether he's going to pose a challenge to Doherty in the short term, and then maybe even beyond that as well. So, yeah, not many people own Doherty this year, but yeah, something to keep an eye on anyway.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on, definitely with Traore. I saw the last Wolves game in the Premier League against Manchester United. Watched all of that, and Traore, my word, I would not like to be up against him. He looks like a rugby player, and maybe in another world he is a rugby player, another life. Parallel universe. But yeah, I'm not quite sure about his goal scoring. I'm not sure about his crossing yet. But he's fast and he looks frightening.
Yeah, he's definitely improving. He was a very, very raw talent when he first signed last year. I think he's playing more of an advanced role. But yeah, excellent. Past couple of games, still got a lot of work to do defensively, which is why Doherty's still got the age, I think. But yeah, getting better all the time. It's a shame he's a midfielder in FPL because he would have been a good defender playing in that wing back role.
Definitely.
Clean sheet points as well.
Definitely. Let's finish off by chatting about Newcastle. Obviously, Spurs opponent. Bournemouth take on City. Palace away to Manchester United. And of course, Norwich. We briefly touched on Norwich take on Chelsea. So yeah, let's just rattle through those teams. Yeah,
well, Norwich had a press conference scheduled for yesterday. At least it was on our list. Didn't happen. It's actually happened today instead. So Zimmerman and Klose are back in training, but neither of them is going to be ready to start. Zimmerman's not going to be in the squad. Klose is, but Daniel Farke says he thinks it's unlikely that he'll feature in the starting lineup. That might change, he might be throwing us a curveball. But it looks like Hanley and Godfrey continue at centre-back. And then, as we heard last week, Onel Hernandez is out for 3 months. Was the first choice left winger last season, which is good news if you're a Todd Cantwell owner, because he's been playing on the left. This budget attacking midfielder we've got in FPL. And Dermich is out as well. It was the only competition for Cookie, but he wouldn't have been threatening to start anyway, even if he had been fit. In terms of the other team, so yeah, Newcastle away at Spurs. Joe Linton's fine. They've still got a slight doubt over... I can't pronounce this guy's name. Maximin, I think that's his name. Bruce is hopeful that he's going to be fit, but he's still a flag on him in FPL. Atsu's back in training as well, but again, slim pickings. No one's going to be interested in Newcastle, really. Who else have we got? Palace we covered yesterday, I think, Bournemouth, no new injuries reported, which, as we've said before, doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't any fresh injuries. It was Cook's back in training, but not yet ready to feature. And any more you can think of?
I think that's it. I mean, I was just going to remind people as well, all the other teams that we haven't mentioned today, it's because they have their press conferences on Thursday. Look out for part 1. We've got a podcast version of that. And of course, the video is on YouTube as well. There's a link in the write-up for today's one as well. And as fast as I can, I'll try and get the podcast version out when I can. But for now, thank you. Just a reminder, the deadline for is today as Everton host Aston Villa, I believe. Also a reminder about Fantasy Football Scout membership. Tons of exclusive articles, stats, gadgets, more details on site. But for now, Neale, goodbye and good luck with the game week.
Yeah, good luck. See you next week.